forward this to I have Outlook account.
All right, I'd like to call the work-study group relative to the police commission.
Hey, I'm gonna hang up now.
Okay.
Meeting to order. It's September 30th, 2021. And we're in the Aldermanic Chamber as well as via Zoom teleconference. The Zoom meeting link can be found on the agenda on the city's website. I am chairing as vice chairman of the committee since Alderman Kelly can't be here this evening. Would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman Dowd,
Present.
Eva Castillo,
Present.
is Sandy Cleary on the committee? Sandy Cleary,
She's not.
Mary Lou Blaisdell,
She's
Mark.
traveling.
Mark Brave,
Here.
and Kendra, forgive me, I don't remember if it's Susie or Smith.
It's Smith
Thank
here.
you.
All right.
And Nicholas Dahl is present.
All right, so we have five, 1, 2, 5. Also attendance. Wheelchair. Deputy Chief. Mr. Rudy. All right. Now this evening, the meeting is going to be a discussion. I'm going to recognize, I don't believe the chief is here. Deputy, are you going to be filling in for?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to be a discussion that starts with, you're going to be leading the discussion, so if you want to come up and take a chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so I assume that you have something to,
Sir, I was under the impression I was here to answer questions, but I can get the ball rolling with
Okay.
a brief statement. Be more than happy to.
yep, that'd be good.
Okay. It's the position of the Nashua Police Department and Nashua Police Commission that the current system in place is the most efficient and effective and best practice system for the appointment of police commissions. We are aware that we remain to be the only agency in the state, to our knowledge, that still falls under this system, which has been in place for over 100 years. But our position is there's a reason Nashua is continually recognized as being one of the top law enforcement agencies in New England, let alone the state of New Hampshire. Having this autonomy that this system has put in place has allowed us to make decisions based on training, experience, best practice, moral and our moral and ethics that we're taught, without any fear of reprisals from city government. Having been born and raised for decades in Massachusetts, and the majority of our sworn police officers in Nashua are coming from outside the state, most from Massachusetts, we can all tell our war stories of our local cities and towns where we have seen and heard local politicians, local government using influence, whether undue or otherwise, into day-to-day police procedures, operations, practices. And we feel that this current system is one of the reasons we're able to recruit so well and pull a high quality and high caliber officer into Nashua. I'd be more than happy to continue with that or answer any questions.
We'll open up to questions in a second, but I just want to start by saying this work study group is investigating the questions that have come up relative to this particular action. Although there may be a change, but right now I believe that this is going to appear on the ballot in November. A legal petition was put together and approved, and I know there's a concern of the number of signatures, but outside of that, it would be on the ballot. it will be voted on, and whichever way it goes, the city government here in Nashville will have to abide by the decision if it goes forward. So, again, the reason for this work-study group is to look at all the questions that came up during the course of when the aldermen were looking at this question, and then voted not to do it immediately, to study it, and because it was a charter question, and get all the facts down before a decision on exactly how the procedure should work would go. We're still doing that, and we'll see at the conclusion of the work-study group where we're at and what we'll do, but it still is, if it's on the ballot, we will live with whatever decision is put forward. Having said that, are there any questions from anyone first here? Anyone on Zoom has questions for the deputy chief? Yes. Ms. Timmons.
And thank you. I'd like to point out that I don't think the police department is in question of how great they are or not. I'm confused when you say, you have the best police department in the state. I really believe that, but it's not about the police. I don't think so. So it's about the commission, not about the police itself or their job being police officers. I've been here 31 years and I see the difference between then and now. So I'm not questioning why Nashua is one of the best police departments in the state. I have other concerns.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I respond to
Yes.
that?
Deputy?
First of all, I appreciate the compliment to the agency. I greatly appreciate it. My opinion is, if you feel that way, and we can all acknowledge that the police commission gives oversight and oversees, especially the major decisions, budgetary, hiring, discipline of the police department. And if your opinion is our police department is as strong as you say, and I wholeheartedly agree, why would we want to change anything that could undermine that or change that? Why would we want to make a change for change's sake?
Yes, Ms. Timmons?
Can I, well, that's my personal opinion, but I hear other opinions from other people in the community, okay? Because I do work with the police department. If we want to change, if sometimes change is better. And what I don't know is the things I don't know. And that's why this committee is put together so I can find out the things that I don't know. And why is it so important to not change? Because change is always good. It always benefit everyone in the long run. And why not? If something we're not seeing, if something is missing, and when you're so against something, what are you hiding? And that's my concern. Maybe I don't know what I don't know.
Okay, are there any other questions? Sonia?
Hi, thank you. My question is, when you say no fear of reprisal, do you think that the other police officers all over the state of New Hampshire have fear of reprisal because they have local control over their police commissioner appointments?
Yes, Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Prince, the difficulty, I'll answer the question. I believe one of the difficulties you'll find is a conversation that I can have with a chief or a deputy chief from an agency where they may be very comfortable being frank with me. They're not as comfortable speaking out publicly. And the reason is, under most systems throughout the state and throughout New England, if they share with me, which has been shared before, that they're envious of our current system, if they were to go public with that, they're basically slapping the current system in the face at the detriment to themselves. All I can tell you is I have spoken to officers, to supervisors in other agencies that have given me horror stories on local elected officials that are interfering in the day-to-day operations, such as whether or not to make arrests and things of that nature, which I put at the top of my list of fears.
Well, the nice thing is if there's 5 people, they can't take that decision on their own. The 5 people have to vote on something. I imagine they can't just, one person can disturb the whole thing, correct?
I disagree.
I have one more question. So what exactly is the step-by-step process if anyone in Nashua would want to become a police commissioner? What are the steps precisely to become a police commissioner? How do you go about that?
My understanding is the governor of the state makes the nomination to the executive council, and the executive council ratifies or approves that nomination. For instance, we recently had one of our police commissioners reappointed, and the information I have received is that there were no other names that were submitted. I don't know that factually. I didn't reach out, but the information I received was no officials from Nashua, for instance, submitted any other names.
So they submit the names to you and you submit it to the governor? Or
No, ma'am.
somebody like me who'd want to become a commissioner, I have to call the governor and say, I want to be a commissioner?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Chief?
Thank you, sir. No, ma'am. The police chief, the deputy chiefs, the command staff of the National Police Department are not involved in this process. We are told this is who the governor has nominated, this is who the executive council has approved, and then we would be presented with a new police commissioner, excuse me. But no, we do not submit the names. My understanding is any citizen, politician or otherwise, can reach out to the governor's office, to the governor's staff, and make a submission. What happens at that point, you would have to ask the governor's office, but anyone is free to reach out to the governor's office.
The police department doesn't recruit.
Correct. Police commissioners?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I spoke to a few people who didn't get on the commission, and they said they were recruited, and when they put their nomination in, they didn't even get a call back. So I was just curious about that. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, I would assume from the people I've talked to that anyone that wanted to be police commissioner and could just submit their name to the governor. And yes, he probably, looks at whoever has submitted their names and makes a decision. One of the things that this committee is looking for is, okay, how many people have they typically had to choose from, and who were they? And more on the procedure, and so that we have a better understanding and what's going on. And I think we also wanted this committee to look into commissioners from other cities and towns and get some kind of a candid response from how things are working. So we didn't have that information yet, and that's one of the reasons for this work study group.
One down?
Yes?
I guess I would ask, how do you become a commissioner or a trustee for the Ira Harris Legacy Trust? How do you do that? You do your homework, you look into it, you figure out who it is. I mean, this isn't rocket science. If someone was interested in the police commission, all they have to do is look into it. It's not a hidden secret by any means. I mean, that's what they want. That's what some people want you to believe, that it's all so secretive and so, nobody can get there because it's ridiculous. It's like any other, how do you become an alderman? How do you become mayor? I don't know. I don't buy that. Nobody knows how to do it. Well, pick up the phone, make a phone call and figure it out.
I would just briefly add that as a current police commissioner, when I started on the police commission, I did not know Chief Lavoie. I did not know Deputy Chief Carignan. I did not know Deputy Chief Linehan. I did not know any of them until I became the police commissioner. So they most certainly didn't recruit me because they didn't know me. So I just thought I would add that.
Yes, Deputy?
Mr. Chair, based on something you just stated, as far as reaching out to other police commissions and doing the due diligence I know this study committee will do, I do have a suggestion, and it might be something you've already taken into account, but it's based on a comment I made earlier. I wholeheartedly believe if you want to hear the most valid, accurate information, especially when you reach out to other cities and towns, it is important to speak to former chiefs and former commissioners. And the reason I say that, and I do believe this, if you speak to a current chief of police who answers to, I'll give an example, let's say their local mayor, and that chief says anything other than our current system is wonderful, I don't understand how they would say that without any potential fear by making a negative comment. I know I would feel that way if I stood up with our current system and someone asked me, something that could be negative towards one of my supervisors. I would be a little bit apprehensive. Once I step away from the system, maybe I'd be more comfortable. And as an example, you have heard retired Chief Heffron, retired Chief Andy Lavoie's opinion on this matter. They have no skin in the game anymore. I mean, they'll always be very proud of the Nashua Police Department, but if they believe this system was detrimental to the city, now's the time for them to speak out on it. So I would just encourage this committee to try to reach out to former or retired chiefs of police, hopefully ones that left in good standing and don't have an extra grant. I would add that also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have hands up. Alderwoman Garthright?
All right, if I can get this together here, I'm going to try to get on video shortly. But one of the things that I have a problem with when you make a statement like that, Deputy Testaverde, is that it seems like our police department here in Nashua, because that's the only one I can speak to, feels as though no matter who's has the oversight, you have to listen to them. For me personally, I have a problem with that. Because if you know someone is wrong and is doing something wrong, I have a problem when you think you have to obey them. Because for me, you don't belong in that position. You don't belong in that position if you feel just because that's your boss and you know they're wrong, whether they're prejudiced or anything else, and you feel that you have to abide by them. Because that tells another story about all the years that I've been here since '79. Because you're just confirming what I've been told and what I believe for so long. I have great faith, at least I felt I had great faith in the police department here over the last 4 years. We've worked hard to make a lot of changes to bring the community together, and particularly people of color in the police department. So I'm really, really struggling now as a person here in Nashua, 40 some odd years, with 5 children and 13 grandchildren and a great grand coming. I'm struggling right now as to what this issue, the fact that it's been requested that we have local control on the police department in terms of the police department or the commissioners. It's not even the police department, it's the commissioners. You know that I know that we're one of the best and have supported the police department in the last 4 to 5 years tremendously across the city and the state. But I'm struggling with how we've gotten so much flack about this. I literally am struggling. And yes, I will have a conversation with the chief again, because none of this seems right to me on a personal note. Someone that's worked very hard to bring that relationship with the community, and particularly of color, with the police department. And when you say, basically you're telling me that all of us that sit in that chamber are lousy and we cannot make the right decisions for you. And I'm going to say over the last 4 years that I've been in that chamber, I thought we were making the right decision for you. So I'm expressing myself probably more than I have with this whole situation because it's really beginning to get to me.
Chief?
Thank you. Alderwoman Gathright, I'm sorry you feel that way. I specifically have said, and I'm almost positive the chief has said, that our comments are not directed at any of the 15 current members of the Aldermanic Circle. We are going with what I believe our whole system of democracy in this country was founded on, that we need a system that assumes there's a potential for someone negative to be in a political office. So nothing has been directed at this aldermanic group. Furthermore, one of the examples we gave was from the 1993 investigation involving 3 sitting aldermen at the time, and listening to retired Chief Heffron, the people, to include the president of the Aldermanic Circle, reaching out to, at the time, Chief Landry, basically trying to influence that investigation. Further, I wholeheartedly disagree with you if you feel that someone who is appointed will have absolutely no influence. I've never said that I'm worried that if an officer is at a domestic violence call and there's a violation of a restraining order, which is a mandatory arrest if we have probable cause, the officer's not going to do the right thing. But at the same time, because I am familiar from other states on how promotions and transfers and things of that nature work, and that there has been, according to very good friends of mine from other states, undue influence, yes, I do worry that if I bring forth a name for a promotion or a transfer, that if someone in local government feels differently, that there could be an influence. And that doesn't mean that that particular politician is even a bad person, especially if the person that they are trying to assist is a good officer and a good employee. But we have a system in place. It's very successful. It is complemented by the Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA. We're one of very few agencies in the country that have this level of accreditation. And once again, I appreciate the compliments you've given the agency. And I would say again, why would you want to change the system? That being said, I also, in July, when I spoke in front of the entire Aldermanic Circle, and I'm aware that some of my comments didn't go as I intended, and I apologize maybe for the way it was interpreted or presented, but at the time, more than half of my life has been with the Nashua Police Department. So to change something that is so near and dear to my heart, I'm very, very hesitant and nervous about, as is the Chief of Police. As far as the local control aspect, the number one thing that keeps our lights on, our cruisers running, our officers on the street is money. And the aldermen and alderwomen control our entire budget, as I know you know, but I look at that as we have local control, the ultimate local control. In addition to that, all 3 of our police commissioners must be Nashua residents, good moral standing, for a minimum of 5 years, Nashua residents for a minimum of 5 years, and we do a background check on them. So the local control is there. If this was a situation where the public was coming forward and saying over and over again, we have a problem with the police department, there is corruption in the police department, officers are abusive, officers are not conducting themselves as professionals, then I could at least sit back, whether I agree or not, and say, I understand why there is such a press to change the system so quickly. I don't believe the system needs to be changed, yet I said in July, and I say again, I'm not so arrogant to say I'm not willing to discuss it with any member of Nashua, which is why I applaud this particular study group. I'm just a little disappointed that it may still be on the ballot before this group gets a chance to really roll up their sleeves and find out what we believe the best practice would be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I have a follow-up, please?
Follow up? Go ahead. And just before you do, I have Mr. Scales and Ms. Sheehan.
Very short.
What? In the queue, and anybody else that has their hand up, if they haven't taken it down, take it down till after Ms. Sheehan speaks.
All right. I will pass this time because I'll have many more meetings to come to. All right.
Okay. So, Mr. Scales?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. You have to give me a minute because I haven't figured out how to I only just figured out how to put my hand up, so I gotta figure out how to take it down.
Yeah, so Ms. Prince and Ms. Timmons, you still have your hand up. If you would put it down till after Ms. Sheehan speaks, thanks. Go ahead, Mr. Scales.
Okay, so with the understanding that this is a committee to look at the commissioner's situation here in Nashua, and the understanding that currently the Nashua Police Department, I'm going to go by Deputy Chief's position that the Nashua Police Department is not very open to the change. However, they would like to discuss the pros and cons. I just would like just a little bit more background on the feeling other than I've heard or I've talked to or whatever. Give me something more substantial than that for your argument against forming the committee.
All set?
I mean, or forming or having a self-deposed police commissioner.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure they're against the committee, but Chief?
I believe I understood.
That's why I changed my statement.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
I believe I understand what you're saying, Mr. Scales, and again, I'm going to explain why you hear me being vague, and I'm not trying to be elusive, but because many conversations, I've been a Nashua police officer for going on 24 years. I have friends in law enforcement throughout New England, and I've been fortunate enough to travel throughout the country training. When I get together and we have these conversations, these are private conversations, and I wouldn't expect any supervisor from another agency to be comfortable standing up and bashing their own agency or their current system, and that's why I give some of those examples. But to answer your question, I sit back and say I am familiar with how our current police commissioners, in the time I've been deputy chief for going on 3 years now, give us oversight with our budget, oversight with our hiring, oversight with our discipline. And I can assure you, as much as I would love a rubber stamp system because I think we do things very well, they're not a rubber stamp, and they scrutinize every penny, every dollar, and they question decisions that are made. So my position is, because I'm familiar with the current system and I see how successful the National Police Department is, I am leery to make any change. Here's an analogy for you, sir. And if you take a basketball team and you take the perfect lineup, and then someone comes up and says, well, why don't you change the point guard? Or why would we? We're undefeated. We have the perfect system in place. And forgive me for the metaphor, because that's how I think, that's how I talk. But that's how I look at it. I will never say the National Police Department is perfect and we can never, ever get better. But we strive every day to get better. That's why I'm open to the study. I'm open to conversations like this, because someone might make a suggestion that we sit back and say, actually, that would work. But our number one major pause with us, our number one major apprehension, is to switch the autonomy that we currently have under the governor-appointed system. We feel it works.
All set, Mr.
Well,
Or do you have another question?
well, I have a kind of a response. Okay, well, I see you guys as a team, and I see the oversight committee, or I should say, not the oversight committee, the police commissioners as the coach, to put it in a better perspective. Now, even though you might have a good going team, sometimes the coaches leave, you get a new coach, and the coach directs that team. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a new coach. Okay, and there's always changes with a new coach, but the goal is still the same, to win, right? With that being said, I really can't see what the argument is. I understand there's always some difficulty. I understand there is some mistrust issues, because that's the bottom line, you know, and nervousness in any kind of change, but I don't really see a real good reason why this can't happen. But that's why we have this committee, so we can discuss it.
Mr. Scales, I appreciate the analogy you used, so I'm going to use it, and I'm going to use the same one. So my fear is that if you have a coach who has an owner that says, I'm going to tell you who you're going to play, I'm going to tell you what plays you're going to make, I'm going to tell you who you're going to trade, I'm going to tell you who you're not. Maybe that works for some places, but I look at that coach as that coach is not living up to their full potential. They're not doing their due diligence. They're almost like a puppet for the owner, as opposed to a situation where the owner says, I have the money, I trust you, coach, you go out and you run the team. And I believe our current system is that the governor appoints who he or she feels has the best qualifications to give oversight on the day-to-day operations of the National Police Department. Then, as soon as that's done and approved by the Executive Council, the governor goes back to dealing with matters of state and doesn't usually, to my knowledge, I've never seen where the governor got involved with local municipal issues dealing with the police commission. So, but I do agree with you wholeheartedly about the benefit of this study group.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Scales. If you have another question, you can answer it later. I'd like to go to Ms. Sheehan.
Thank you so much. And it's Stephanie Shaheen. I'm the chair of the Portsmouth Police Commission, and I was invited the city council and did a lot of work to evaluate our city charter and really evaluate and wrestle with the Citizen Oversight Police Commission. And I think for both of our communities, although they're different and they're appointed in different ways and elected in the case of Portsmouth, I think we're ahead of the game in the sense that we do have built-in civilian oversight in the forms of these commissions, which is a fantastic start that not a lot of communities can point to. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about how our commission functions. We are duly elected. We are a commission of 3. We have terms that cycle, so not everyone's up at the same time, but we are at large elected by the entire city. So, you know, one commissioner cycles off, and then 2 years later, the other 2 spots are open. We have 2 open seats right now in this upcoming municipal election. Terms are 4 years. And we provide oversight of, you know, much like you heard the deputy chief say, we provide oversight of the budget and policy work. We just achieved CLIA accreditation a couple of years ago as well. We oversee the hiring and firing of the senior leadership within the department. And it sounds like function in a temporary appointment to about how it works in Portsmouth.
Yes, we have some questions. Go ahead.
Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for joining us. Do you know how long the commissioners have been elected by the city in Portsmouth?
I believe from the very beginning.
The commission has been in place for quite a while?
Yes, for a very long time.
Thank
And enacted by the city charter and have historically been 3 members. We've actually, part of what I was looking at when I was on the council is evaluating, is that the right number? I don't think it's the right number. I think it would be better to have 5 because we always have issues of whether we have a quorum, because you have to have all 3 commissioners present in order to have a quorum. So we've actually looked in our community at evaluating the size of the commission. But at this point, we haven't yet gone forward with proposed changes to the charter to expand the size.
Thank you.
I just have one question for you. And what would it take in Portsmouth to remove a police commissioner?
You get voted off.
So you would be there until the next election?
Presumably, although we have had an instance where there was public pressure over a particular situation, and we had two commissioners choose to step off. They resigned, and you can have a mayor or the council call for a resignation. Usually that kind of public pressure would force the decision of a resignation. That happened as recently as about 6 or 7 years ago. I was on the council, and we had two commissioners actually step off as a result of an outcry over a particular issue. And then in that instance, we had interim people appointed until the next election cycle.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Timmons, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Ms. Sheehan, thank you for coming. Just for clarification, so the citizens of Portsmouth elect your commissioners, and if they do something egregious, then the mayor or whoever can remove that commissioner. But the key I'm trying to say is that the people of Portsmouth, they're the ones that elect their own commissioners. So if anything happened, those people are the ones that's responsible for selecting the ones that they did, and not the state. Is that correct?
That is correct. So every 2 years, we have at least one commissioner's name on the municipal ballot. This year we have two because of the way the cycles work. And we're duly elected by the citizens of Portsmouth in the same way the school board is, and the same way the city council is. And we also have a fire commission, and our fire commission is elected the same way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one other question. What type of vetting process do you go through before your name can get on the ballot?
It's the same way, and the same way you all go through the process to elect, to choose to put your name on the ballot to run for alderman. I mean, it's the same way you would if you were going to run for city council or school board or police commission. And in the case of Portsmouth, you make the case to the voters. We have, community forums, we have meetings you can attend and ask questions, we have information sessions, and it really is up to the citizens to decide if they can put their confidence in you to serve in that capacity. And like I said, they are 4-year terms. Our council members and our school board members serve 2-year terms, but they do cycle, so we're not all up at the same time. Unlike our all 9 of our seats on the city council are at large, and or why you think you're qualified, and the voters decide.
So if I understand you correctly, that the mayor or the selectman in Portsmouth had some cause to remove a commissioner, they could ask for that commissioner to resign, but that commissioner is not obligated to resign?
Well, I haven't ever seen it in the 17 years I've lived in Portsmouth, and I grew up in Madbury, but 17 years I've lived in Portsmouth, I've seen calls for the resignation of police commissioners on 3 occasions, and in every case, they resigned. So I've never seen it play out where someone was asked to resign or they were called on to resign and they didn't.
Okay.
And frankly, it wouldn't be any different for an alderman or a city council member or a school board member if there was a concern over someone's integrity or some action they took. There'd be the same kind of public pressure to get them to step down if they couldn't do the job.
Okay. Alderman Wilshire?
Yeah, so thank you for being on the call tonight. Citizens elect their police commissioners, so there's not really any background check or anything like that. So I guess what would concern me about that is, what if the citizens elect someone who has a criminal history? I mean, you don't vet that, right? You don't give them On the ballot, you don't give them a background check.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the same could be said for the city council. And the city council approves and authorizes the budget for the police department.
Well, I agree, but I think the police department is a little different than, I think you don't want a criminal on the police department, on the police commission.
Yeah, I don't think you want a criminal anywhere in city government, right?
No, you don't, but I think the police department, even more so, you don't.
Okay, all said.
Just my take.
Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, thank you for being here tonight. I have a very brief statement. I'm wondering if you agree or disagree. Would you agree or disagree that elected officials, in order to successfully be voted, continually be voted into office, subsequent times, would need to curry favor with voters in order to win elections?
No, I think elected officials are elected to do a job and they need to do it with integrity. And if they do it with integrity, then they have a better shot at getting reelected.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, follow up, Chief?
Thank you. Alderwoman Wilshire did ask the part about the vetting process. So along those lines, it is possible for someone that has a disdain, I'll take the criminal record out of it, but someone that has a dislike, a hatred, a defund the police mentality, as long as the citizens elected them to become a police commissioner, correct?
Again, I mean, I think that's part of what the electoral process would flesh out. And I'll give you a perfect, I'll give you a very candid and direct example of how this played out in our own community. We had a situation not long ago while I was on the city council where a police officer was accused of manipulating an elderly woman out of, and it becoming part of her will, right? So there was a criminal case, there was an investigation, there was, he was put on administrative leave. This is all played out in public. You can read articles about it. It created huge backlash among the elected members of the police commission. The citizen who brought forward this concern and complaint was very disheartened by the way the police commission had overseen and provided leadership in this situation. He then ran for police commission. And you could have argued that maybe he wouldn't be very sympathetic to the police department, or maybe he had an axe to grind because he had brought forward this legitimate concern about how a police officer was not upholding their end of the bargain to keep the community safe. But instead, he ultimately became chair and has become a proponent for transparency, oversight, support, and has been a strong advocate for the police budget, the department, leadership within the department. So, I mean, I think the goal of the commission is to be a conduit to the community, to provide advocacy and oversight for the needs of the police department, and to be that connection, to understand what's happening on the ground in the community where there are concerns, to bring those concerns forward, to hear when the department is saying, look, we need some additional resources, we need some reinforcement here, we need you to help us advocate for these resources. And that's the role of the commission. It's this, we're fortunate both in Nashua and in Portsmouth. We have this built-in mechanism to provide that kind of transparency. And to me, I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it. It has worked well in Portsmouth to have our commissioners be elected members. And when it isn't working well, like in the instance I just described, we had 2 commissioners choose to resign. And we had the person who brought forward this complaint, and the complaint was about the police department. And he ran for police commission, and he was the police commission chair until a year ago. And so, I do think the electoral process does have a way of fleshing out those concerns. And if you had somebody who was actively advocating against the police department, it's hard to see why the community would elect them to serve on the police commission. And if they did, and it didn't work well, that person wouldn't get reelected.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
one last brief follow-up, if you'll allow.
Chief?
Thank you very much. Final question from me, ma'am. Do you have any idea how the current command staff feels about the way police commissioners are chosen in Portsmouth?
I mean, I think so. I don't want to speak for them, but we just appointed our new chief, Mark Newport, who's been in the department for 20 plus years. He's a UNH grad and has worked his way through the department and up to becoming our new chief. He was put in that position not long ago, about a year ago. And I think the command staff would say the commission has played an important role in advocating for things like budget, contracts, and including up until, we're actively in the process of evaluating a new location for a police department headquarters. We've been advocating for changes to the current space that the department is operating in because we've had some issues with the building that they're in. So, again, I wouldn't even try to represent or speak for them, but I think if you were to ask our chief, or if you were to ask the chief who left a year and a half ago, I think that they would say to you that the way we are appointed and the fact that they have us as a resource has more often than not been helpful.
Thank you, ma'am. I was there months ago doing research, and I asked that question.
Okay, I do have Sonia and Kendra, but Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you. I know that in Manchester, I think their police commission is more advisory, and I know we have Eva Castillo, who is a Manchester Police Commission on Zoom. Is Portsmouth advisory, or do you do the promotions, hiring, firing?
We do the promotions, hiring, and firing.
Okay.
All right, all set?
Yeah.
Sonia?
Yep. So if I understand correctly, I guess the difference between how you have it and how I'd like to see it is that instead of being elected like you would an alderman, we're asking our elected 15 officials who are also elected by the people to vote, vet, and publicly interview the candidates and have public input for the first time in public meetings. So very transparent process. The only difference is you didn't get interviewed by the people, but you got elected and you had to prove yourself and put your resume out there and have discussions and be vetted in a public forum instead of, or more like debate, probably question answer type forum versus how just the problems that happened with aldermen, but there have been issues that I could list. There's 3 or 4 of them actually, whether it's police cruiser contracts with special deals and aldermen being threatened if they brought it up and intimidated and things like that, or whether it was Duckgate or if it was a sitting commissioner who maybe had the city pay a settlement in the past. There could be good or bad people everywhere, but like you said, it would flush itself out eventually. We had a person on the school board who was elected and we wanted her out and we asked her to resign. A whole bunch of people asked her to resign. She refused to resign, but she didn't get reelected. So that happens. And hopefully the Board of Aldermen can appoint somebody else and elect somebody else. So I'm thanking you for coming tonight. I appreciate the information.
I have Kendra and then Alderman Lou.
I think I was just gonna kind of echo what Sonia just said. I feel like public officials are elected by the people, and the police are here to work for the community. So why do you feel like you shouldn't have to answer back to the community, I guess is my biggest question.
Is that a question for who?
For the deputy.
I'd like to answer that, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, are you familiar with Tom Alcier?
No.
Okay. Tom Alcier is a Nashua resident that has publicly called for the legalization of the murder of police officers. So under the Portsmouth system, Tom Alcier could be elected to become a police commissioner. And if anyone says that would never happen, Tom Alcier was elected by the citizens of Nashua to the State House. I remember vividly being in a union meeting when this information came to light, and the comment was made, and I was there, so this is firsthand information. The comment was made, we need to go public so this man is never elected. And the comment was made by the union executive board, the citizens of Nashua will never elect this man. They all know he is a pro-cop killer. And then they elected him. And then shortly thereafter, the State House asked for his resignation, and he resigned. So we are answerable to the citizens of Nashua. If we don't do a good job, we don't get a budget. If we do anything illegal, immoral, unethical, we're investigated, we're removed, we lose all our police power, we can suffer criminal penalties. We believe every day, and fortunately, several members tonight have complimented the Nashua Police Department, to include Alderwoman Gathright, and I know Alderwoman Gathright knows how hard we work with the community. So we believe we are constantly subject to the citizens of Nashua. We are working for the citizens of Nashua. But sometimes people don't like the hard decisions that police officers have to make. And I worry about a system where if a local official wants to get reelected, I don't understand how they're not going to listen to their constituents. I mean, 7th grade civics has taught me that elected officials need to curry favor with their constituents to get elected. That's not a bad thing. I have the utmost respect for the aldermen and alderwomen in the city, and the fact that they keep getting elected tells me they're doing a good job for their constituents. I just think the police department is one of the few things that should be a little bit autonomous. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Lou?
Thank you very much, Alderman Dowd. I just wanted to offer my experience, my husband is a current police commissioner in Nashua, and I can just share that I know how, he went about getting elected, or rather appointed. He attended police commission meetings for a couple of years because he was interested in how the police department is run. He had been for a couple of years in his 20s a police officer, never made the pension, wasn't with the department long enough. But he has always been a supporter and concerned with police enforcement. So he found out what the process was for being appointed, and he followed the process, which was to send a letter to the governor's office and then to speak with the people who approve it. And they spoke with him and they vetted him. Now, to be honest, this will seem funny, but before I got into the government, into aldermanic chambers, I didn't understand how to get appointed to any of the voluntary committees that are in Nashua. I did not have a clue, didn't even know how to go about finding out. I feel really crazy now, but it does require just looking into it and asking questions. I want to really thank Stephanie Shaheen, because this is what I really hoped that this group would do is, get some voices of people who come from other ways of doing things. And I think this is great to have this discussion. I wish that I heard a comment, I think from Attorney Gathright, that there is corruption in the department. I'm sorry, are you talking? That there is corruption, and I would just like to, I haven't heard anything. I'd like to know what is being referred to.
May I speak for a second?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I'm not going to go into that with you. And secondly, I'm not an attorney. I am an alderman as well as a state rep and a mom and a grandmom and soon a great grandmom. All right? So I'm done with that.
All right, thanks. Anything follow up, Alderman Lou, or you're all set? You're on mute.
No, I'm all set. I just heard that allegation and I thought it could be discussed, but, thank you.
No.
Yeah, we probably don't want to get into names
Exactly.
and allegations because that's really not the purview of this committee. Ms. Prince?
Yeah, I just wanted to have a response to the lieutenant. Earlier, he said that, people might have fear to speak up, but I knew a few policemen that had fear to speak up because they agreed with me, because the chief is the boss and, he's telling everybody vote no, and, that puts fear into them. Now, when he said that there's a fear of change or if the system, or what if somebody wanted to defund the police, obviously, if there's a system change and that person is put into that place and elected by the 15 people on the Board of Aldermen, obviously the change is wanted by the people. Whether the lieutenant agrees with the change or not doesn't really matter. It's the will of the people. So he's saying, we don't want change. I don't like change. Sometimes there's change. For instance, the chief and I didn't agree on body cams for 3 years. I was pushing for body cams. No, don't want body cams. This year, he's open to body cams. Great, 3 years. But, things change. He was against body cams for 3 long years, and this year he's not. So things change. The system changes sometimes, and that's a good thing. So having the will of the people heard, I think, is super important. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mrs. Shaheen or the deputy?
I don't have a question, but can I just say, Steph, thank you so much. It's been a while. I appreciate you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And these issues that you all are wrestling through, we're doing something similar in Portsmouth. It's not easy, and it's really important. I think no more important obligation than to ensure that public safety is the highest priority in our communities. And that means we have to trust the people that we are relying on to do that work. And I think this is important work you all are doing. If I can help you know how to find me. Just please feel free to reach out.
And also before
I have a question for the deputy.
Just one sec, just before before you sign off, Ms. Shaheen, I just want to thank you for all of you. It looks like you've put in a lot of service to the city of Portsmouth, and Portsmouth is one of our nicest cities. It's progressive, it's energetic, and it's also one of the big tourist attractions in the state. So, and also home to one of our most important Navy yards. So thank you for all your service. And does someone else want to speak? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say to all of you, I've grown up in a family committed to public service, and I've watched my parents serve at different levels. And I think local government and municipal leadership, there's nothing more important and there's nothing harder. So thank you to all of you for the work you're doing every day to make Nashua a safer, better place to live and work and raise a family.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? Ms. Timmons?
It's not for Ms. Shaheen. I just have one question to ask the deputy.
Sure.
And then if he's still around.
Yeah, he's still here.
Oh, okay. My question is, you mentioned the word perfect, and I have a problem with the word perfect because nothing is perfect. We can always do better. We can do better in every aspect of our life. I try to be there. I try to be perfect, and I can never get there. But I'm as perfect as I can get. I know you guys can always tell me how I can do better. I think we can do that with our police department because I don't believe they're perfect. I think that if we have more eyes, I think it can be more perfect-er than just saying we're perfect the way we are. And that means you have no no reason to change anything. And I have a slight problem with that. And I was wondering how you feel that we can improve on what we already have.
Chief?
Ma'am, I'm sorry for the confusion. I thought I specifically said I would never say that we are perfect because we always strive to get better. So if I didn't say that, that is how I feel, and I agree with the statement you just made. I thought I did, but regardless, I do agree. We're not perfect. I don't think I wholeheartedly agree with you. No one is, and we strive every day to make things better and more efficient. Could you just, if you don't mind, the very last part of your question, could you repeat it for me, please?
One of the things is that to make a more perfect unity, that we have more people watching what we're doing and not just the three that's there. I really don't know a lot about the ones. I had to go and research. And when Alderwoman Wishaw said, well, we know all these things and we can easily look at it, but the average citizen don't. They just don't. And they don't know when the commission positions are up. I don't even know. I don't know when they're selected, and I don't know when they're up. But I can tell every one of you guys have been elected. I can tell you when your positions are up because I actually know, because it's out there. And it's not as transparent as you might think it is. And it's like, if I'm just dumb or whatever the case is, because I can ask anybody walking down the street, do you know how many years the commissioner is in place and when is their term is up? I really don't know that. So it's not as transparent as if I was in Portsmouth, because that would be real transparent because we would be electing that particular person. So that's what I'm saying. I think we don't have the transparency that we need in Nashua. Not that the police department is corrupt or wrong or anything. It's just more eyes is better for everybody. More people of color, more women, more everything. So the 3 commissioners is there, fine, let them be there. But then we also should have somebody else other than them. And sometimes you have one accountant, you might need 2 accountants. The other one watches the other one if you have a lot of money. That's the point I'm trying to make.
May I answer a question? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Timmons, you asked, I believe, what, you said several things. I followed right along what you said, but as far as what we're doing basically to strive to be better, I'll list off some quick bullet points. As Ms. Prince said a moment ago, we're in the process of getting body cameras. By the end of October, we start our training department-wide. I just spoke here 2 nights ago and the aldermen and alderwomen were good enough to ratify a contract with a language line, which will give us access to be able to do interpretation services for over 240 languages, including American Sign Language. This is one of the cornerstones of the Chief's administration to become a culturally effective organization. That is something else we're also working towards. We're constantly recruiting. We're down 7 officers. We're at full complement months ago, and with it's kind of a tough time to be in law enforcement. I don't think there's any ideal time. We've had some retiring. We've had some basically say it's not for me. But I can tell you, and I don't have my paperwork in front of me, so I'm going by memory. I believe this is accurate, but if I'm off by a number or 2. Out of the last 29 hires, 9 out of the 29 have minority status. We're very proud of that. They are outstanding officers, and we're going to continue to recruit the best officers we can that also represent the demographics of the city. So those are just some quick bullet points when you say, I agree we're not perfect. These are just some of the things we're doing to get a little bit closer there. I understand what you're saying about the transparency of the police commission system. I know when there's an election because when I drive around, I see lawn signs. And because our police commissioners aren't elected, there's not that level of transparency, though I have made some comments tonight on why I like the appointed system better than the elected system. And Tom Alcier will keep jumping out of my mouth every time I hear voting for them. But I do also know that with the click of a mouse, it's very easy to find when our police commissioners are up and what the process is. So it is there, and the number one thing I can say, and ma'am, I know you've worked very closely with the chief and previous chiefs over the years, We are a phone call away, and we'll answer any questions you or any other citizen has. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Linda? Linda, you're on mute.
Oh, I was just saying that I saw two other hands up before me that were already there. I don't know if they're done. That's Sonia and Elizabeth. But I actually have a question. Can I move to another person? Because I talked to Stephanie. Can I go to Ava
Can you
for a
what?
question?
Oh, yeah, sure. Ava?
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Oh, good. I'd like to know a little more about Manchester. You know, I've came to a couple of you.
I don't hear you.
You went back on mute.
I don't know why I didn't touch it and it went on mute. So maybe somebody else is muting me. However, I've gone to a couple of the, you know, when you guys were, I guess, appointed as commissioners and what have you. And I'm just curious as to how do you find that relationship since you guys are appointed as well, but yet you have no voting power. And so I'm just curious how that works.
Okay. Well, you know, prior to my being a police commissioner, I really never had any relationship with the police. I'm an activist for a living and my heart. So both. I get paid to protest. And I'm an immigrant rights advocate. So I started going to visit Chief Mara because we were concerned about profiling immigrants in the city of Manchester. And, you know, for a couple of years, they didn't give me the time of the day, but they were very polite. But little by little, I started building a relationship with him. And he is the one that actively lobbied then Mayor Gatsas and asked him to put me in the commission. I would have never, I had no idea what a commission was or why it did, you know, and he took a leap of faith. And I went, he told me, you need to go talk to Gatsas right now because he wants to hear from you. And I went and I talked to him and I said, yes, I want to be a police commissioner because I want to act as a bridge between the immigrant community and the police. And I want to understand why you do what you do and see how we can all work together because I believe that regardless of what color we are or where we come from, we all want to live in a safe city and we want to be able to count on the police to defend all of us. And you know, this is, we're 5 commissioners. We have no power with just pretty much advisory. So we really don't hire, fire. Well, we just meet with them every month and we get reports and we advise. And, you know, sometimes we have private meetings when they discuss stuff that they don't want the public to know about or they're not ready for the public to go about, and we just advise them. We serve 3-year terms, so we can serve 2 consecutive terms. Then we had to break, and after my 6 years, I told Chief Capano I want to go back on the commission. He said yes. And I waited my turn and I came back, so I'm right back. So I'm in my third term as a police. And I really believe in what I do, regardless of whether we have power or not. We do have a lot of influence, and I have used that to first to understand myself why they do what they do, and secondly to educate them about cultural differences and how, you know, and I have been in the Nashua, you know, I go to the conversations of race and justice meetings in Nashua, and, you know, Nashua is one of my favorite police departments, and I have met little chiefs all over the place just trying to build a relationship with them. And I think it's very important for us, people of color, regardless of how the method, to build a relationship with the police, because many times We all see the world through our own lenses. We all see the world through our own experience. And it takes to look back and see things from a different perspective, to see how many times this all misunderstand this because we don't come together trying to see somebody else's perspective, you know? Like when I go around sometimes I go to the CIT trainings, the crisis intervention training, and I talk to the police officers and about cultural differences, and I use this little cartoon where two people are facing each other and there's a 6 in the middle, and my 6 is somebody else, the person across myself is a 9. And I said, you know, that's what perception is all about. And if we, you know, that doesn't mean that one's right and one's wrong. And until we come together to talk, we cannot really get the whole truth, or why is it that you think that way. So to me, that's the value of being a police commissioner. I'm not here to advise you because I really don't have, you know, I don't even live in Nashua. I have the utmost respect for the Nashua Police Department, and I can testify how the Chief Carignan has been so open and so out there to build relationships and to educate himself. I know he's helped me a lot to build relationships with police departments that I had no contact whatsoever. And I think, you know, I really treasure my being a commissioner because of that. But, you know, I've seen some commissioners in Manchester that it's just like they say, everybody wants to be a commissioner. Supposedly that's something that's really, what is it? Not cool, but prestigious. But, you know, I've seen some of those commissioners go sit there for an hour a month, and then they don't do anything. So that's a total waste of a position that we could use to building, you know, to do something, to build support, to build relationships, to get all sides to understand one another. So, and I really don't know. I think, you know, it's just the mayor and the aldermen and sometimes the police, the chiefs, that decide who's going to present, and we just pretty much present ourselves to the board of mayor and aldermen and bring our resumes, and they vote us. But I don't see I really don't see it as a contested thing, and at the same time, I see that your average person has no clue how to become a police commissioner, or even that there's a position such as a police commissioner or anything.
Thank you. Ms. Prince?
Hi. So earlier, I just heard a few comments about, you know, what could be wrong, if there's anything wrong with our police department. I'm privileged, I'm white. I've never been stopped for a speeding ticket, nothing. I took a wrong turn one time, I got a warning. But I have friends of color, Latinos, African Americans, Indians, they have been pulled over. And it was not the same experience whatsoever. And it's not because they were bad drivers or anything like that. So I think there are problems. We're just not clued in because some of us have privilege, and I'm the first to admit that. And I'm not saying everyone in the police department is bad, but that was one of the reasons I was pushing for the cameras. And for some reason, the chief was pushing against me. But then some wave came my way, and now he agrees. But anyway, had we had maybe a commission of 3 to 5 people of civilians, maybe this would have been pushed 3 years ago. Maybe not. I don't know. But the other thing I want to say is why wasn't there any diversity or gender, you know, in the last, they make an effort to put people of color and minorities on the police force, but they don't make an effort to do that, you know, on the commission, which they could recruit if they wanted to, right? But they don't, so they're okay with the status quo of having 3 white people there all the time who happen to be male. So I don't know, I think there's efforts made everywhere. Why weren't there any efforts made there? Because they too are representing us, and the police works for the people. So I think there's changes that need to be made, and I just want to say that. Thank you.
Chief?
Thank you, sir. Just to respond to that very last part, we do not want, I believe you do not want your local police department involved in politics. We strive to not be involved in politics. This current situation is crushing us because we do not want to be involved in politics. And I have not recruited a police commissioner, and I hope there's never a time in my career where I do recruit a police commissioner, because I don't believe in cronyism. I do not want, and if I told people we're striving hard to recruit not only the best officers, but those that represent the city as much as possible. And I look at that as such a positive attribute. Anyone can, so Ms. Prince can call the governor's office and make a recommendation. She can recommend herself, she can recommend a friend, she can recommend anyone she wants. What the governor decides to do with it is the governor's choice. We've said this numerous times. Governor Sununu did not initially appoint the current 3 police commissioners. Governor Hassan did. Governor Sununu reappointed them. So you have a female governor, Democrat, male governor, Republican. I'm looking at it like you really have both sides of the aisle here, and then you have another vetting process with the executive council and in the background. But yes, she made a point. We could go out and recruit. We don't want to go out and recruit. I would like to think the citizens don't want us recruiting our own bosses.
Okay,
Oh, can I respond?
you got a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. So you're saying that the fact that often there are former police officers on the police commission, that's just pure luck, and that, or maybe somebody from PAL, or it's just pure luck because they're interested in that. My issue with that is when I say the fox watching the hen house and I hear of internal investigations, red flags go up for me. For instance, one time I posted online, hey, whatever happened to that lady with the young, her son, who she thought was depressed, and she asked the police to do a wellness call. And unfortunately, he ended up dying. They shot him in the stairway. I asked questions. I'm like, hey, whatever happened to that investigation? This was like 4 months after. I said, did anybody hear anything? What happened? I asked what happened. You know what I got? I got a call from the police chief at my workplace in Manchester. He didn't like that. I'm like, why are you calling me? He's like, oh, why are you asking questions? I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, I'm a citizen of this town. I'm asking questions because I remember that happened and I never heard what happened. I never heard anything about the investigations take time. We're doing our own internal investigation too. And like, he was really offended that I asked a question. So that was another red flag for me. That was Chief Lavoie, not Kerrigan. So no fault to him. But I'm just saying there are red flags sometimes. And I do think that citizens oversight is better. If you look at Vermont, they're looking into putting citizens oversight throughout the state right now because they're having so many issues. Not that we have issues all the time in Nashua, that was maybe one, but there are issues that maybe I'm not afraid to speak up about, but I have friends and people of color who are afraid to speak up. So I have that privilege again. So I speak for everyone. I try to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves. But I do think Nashua does a great job. I'm not going to lie. I was on those committees with the chief. I helped him organize the meetings at the schools, facilitate the conversation. What we came out of there was amazing. Some kids said they didn't know that if you punched someone else, they could press charges because they were used to like being in rough environments and they didn't think that was a thing. And we explained to them it was. So they were amazed, so what people know and don't know about the laws, and we didn't know about, hey, do you have to show your ID? Do you not? Are you allowed to pull over? When I lived in Louisiana, I was told, don't pull over until there's light or somewhere where you're not alone. Here, if you do that, they think you're grabbing a gun, so it's just different everywhere. So anyway, it's good to have citizens input, in my opinion.
Commissioner Dowell?
Yeah, I would just like to make a couple of points, and I'm not going to get into a long discussion about this. The Police Athletic League is a charity, and I'm not going to apologize for being involved in a charity that is trying to help inner city kids in Nashua. I don't believe my service for PAL, which long predated my becoming a police commissioner, had anything to do with me becoming a commissioner. Like I said, the Nashua police officers did not recruit me, and the only police officers I really interacted with at PAL were rank and file officers, And again, I'm not going to apologize for helping run athletic programs for inner city children. Second, just because I'm a white male does not mean that I don't support diversity. And I will tell you that this current police commission has been encouraging and supportive to both Chief Lavoy and Chief Carignan to try to help the department become more culturally diverse. We speak about it often at police commission meetings, which are open to the public. We don't hide it, and that's all I'm gonna say on the matter.
Okay, I'm gonna open up the public comment. So take a break from Zoom, and is there anyone here in the chamber that would like to make any comments? Nope. All right, then Alderman Gottfried? You're on mute.
I'm using a different computer and it's really weird. I can only see a part of what I need to click on. I don't know why. But anyway, I have questions now of Mr. Brave, Mark Brave. And I just don't remember it now. Are you a commissioner or are you a police officer?
I'm the Stratford County High Sheriff
Sure.
on the Clicos.
Okay, so is your group, or is the sheriff on that side have commissioners?
No, so a sheriff is elected by the county residents. We do have a police commission in Rochester, which is one of the towns in my county. And I did reach out to them, so I'm waiting to hear back just so we have another, different perspective. Like you heard from Commissioner Shaheen in Portsmouth, which is Rock County, but that's about 15 minutes across the bridge from Dover, so.
Okay. So I guess at one of these meetings, we'll probably hear from that person?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, I'm hoping the next meeting.
All right. So the fact that you were brought into this commission, or not commission, but into the study committee, I believe it was done because they felt that you had some insight into either commissioners, I'm assuming, because that's what this is all about. So I would like to hear your insight as well.
I was brought here because, again, it's a different set of eyes on an issue that's, the residents of Nashua is dealing with, the aldermen's police department. I'm just here to bring in resources from not only my county, but counties, next to Stratford County that do have successful police commissions that are voted in by the citizens. And I know that's on the table as an option for the residents of Nashua or for the people to vote on or whatnot, or for this committee to study. In my opinion, when I ran for sheriff, I was elected by the people. It's a tough position because I am a chief law enforcement officer, but it's a political position. So it's been something where I've had to lean on a lot of the county chiefs to help me navigate that because public safety is first, but also I am due to run again next term. So you're having to go out and campaign for a position, a law enforcement role. So I do know that there is a way to keep that position, like as a sheriff, there's no favors done. I'm not, I have constituents, but they have a voice, and I hear it every day. Different concerns, firearms, COVID, everything else, and all I do is listen, give input, look into stuff, but I try to do it with transparency, openness, and like I said, it is a law enforcement role, and you are elected in that role. So.
Thank you.
All set, Alderman Guthrie?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, just one other thing before we wrap up. Deputy, at the Monday at the police commissioners meeting, it was brought up about a young woman from California that did research.
Yes, sir.
And could you just give an overview of that story kind of quickly? Because I think it speaks very highly of the, it's not having to do with this commissioner's thing, but it speaks very highly of the National Police Department.
Yes, sir. A young girl in California was given a high school assignment, I believe she's in 11th grade, to write about, do research on a police department. And she, doing research, found that Nashua has continually been rated one of the safest cities in America. And she wrote a letter. She did research on the National Police Department and wrote a letter just complimenting us, from basically 3,000 miles away, on our professionalism and all the things that we strive for working with the community in order to keep being one of the safest cities. So it was something the chief was very prideful of.
And I thought it was very important that the reputation of the National Police Department is spread across the country, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no other questions, I'm gonna move on. Next item is remarks by committee members. Alderman Wiltshire.
I have a question. I know that the chair had set up some meetings to involve the wards, people from each, 2 separate meetings, I guess, with wards specific.
Yes.
How are we advertising? How are we letting people know that these meetings are gonna happen, and how do we get them involved? I mean, I think that's what the whole purpose of this group was, is to, study what's going on and get input from the citizens. And, we get a select few people that show up, but my concern is that we're not getting this word out to everybody. Not everybody watches Channel 16. So I guess what my concern is, how do we get the word out to people that we want their input, that we want them to come to these meetings and participate with us?
I'll be talking with Alderwoman Kelly tomorrow and see what she's got in mind for advertising.
Okay, because, if I could.
Yes.
We should be, maybe calling Dean Shalhoub over the Telegraph and maybe putting something out on social media, maybe scrolling somewhere. I think it's an important issue, and I think the more input we have, the better. So I understand that there are meetings set up, but I don't know how we're gonna get those people here.
Yeah, also should be on the city's website as well. So, I know, for instance, that I've talked to people in my ward who are more than willing to put up signs for me, and the next thing I know, they don't even know there's an election in November. I'm going, whoa. So the city needs to get word out a lot better than we do, so it's a larger issue. All right, any other remarks by committee members?
I just have a comment.
Yes,
And
Alderman
it's
Guthrie.
brief. I just want to say that, over the last, 4 or 5 years, that, not as an alderman, but I've worked with the police department as a community, representing African Americans here in Nashua. And, but not just myself, but there's been so many, like Ava said, we all work together as National Community Conversation on Race and Justice, and actually have done a great thing here in Nashua, not just for our constituents, but we've also done it for our children. So I want to say that at no point was there a dig. Well, I should take it back. I did make one, but but we do have the best. And when I look at New Hampshire, and when you talk to others that live in Nashua, they will say, I'm okay, I'm in Nashua, but if I leave Nashua, and particularly if I go north, then that's where the difference come in. So we can say all day long that Nashua is the best, and I'm going to agree with you. That is not, we're not talking about Nashua PD, and I have a problem when you keep trying to put it on the PD, because that's not what this is about. And people really need to understand that and look at that. This is about who
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say, we just need to make that clear, that it's not about National PD, because we do have number one, and I will be the first to say that.
now, my reason for bringing it up is I thought it was an interesting piece of information that the public should know.
But everybody knows that. Most people of color knows that in Nashua.
All right,
So we keep saying things that, you keep saying things that we said, why are they saying that again? Why are they repeating that again? We all already know that. So I'm really serious about this. If we want to do this right, then you really need to look at the issue, the real issue, not keep saying it's about Nashua PD. And that's all I have to say. As a community person,
Okay.
and I am an advocate, Ava, I've known for many years as advocates, working in Manchester and all over. Okay, that's my spill.
all right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm the only one here. Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes. We're adjourned at 8:38 PM.